Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a critical juncture in the history of our planet. The issue at hand is climate change, and it demands our immediate attention. Our world is undergoing unprecedented changes, and the consequences are far-reaching. First and foremost, we must acknowledge the alarming rise in global temperatures. The evidence is undeniable. Our polar ice caps are melting, sea levels are rising, and extreme weather events are becoming more frequent. These changes pose a grave threat to our coastal communities and biodiversity. Furthermore, the impact of climate change extends beyond the environment. It affects economies, health, and social stability. Droughts and food shortages can lead to conflicts, displacement, and suffering on a massive scale. In the face of this crisis, it is our moral obligation to act. We must transition to clean energy sources, reduce carbon emissions, and support sustainable practices. The future of our planet depends on the choices we make today. Today, I want to delve into the profound impact of digital transformation on businesses and their competitive edge. The digital age has ushered in a paradigm shift, and it's imperative that companies adapt. In this era, customer expectations have evolved dramatically. Companies that embrace digital tools can provide personalized experiences, enhancing customer satisfaction and loyalty. Additionally, data-driven insights enable better decision-making, allowing firms to stay agile and responsive to market trends. Furthermore, digital technologies optimize operational efficiency. Automation and AI-driven processes can reduce costs and errors, freeing up resources for strategic investments. Businesses that harness these capabilities gain a competitive advantage in today's fast-paced marketplace. In conclusion, the digital transformation isn't merely an option. It's a necessity for businesses looking to thrive. By focusing on customer experience, data-driven insights, and operational efficiency, companies can position themselves for success in the digital age.
You may not know much, if anything, about Jean-Jacques Rousseau, but you have probably heard the well-known quote, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." In his early work, Rousseau argued that mankind was happiest and at its best in a state of nature, that is, before the creation of society and civilization. He saw society as artificial and corrupt, and that good people were corrupted by it. The Social Contract is perhaps the most enduring and well-known of his books, covering pretty well every aspect of man in society. However, in this book, his attitude to the condition of man in a state of nature changes. In such conditions, man is brutish and competitive by nature, and there is no law or morality. Therefore, because it is easier to survive by joining forces with others, people form societies to better fight anything that might endanger their situation. Rousseau's political philosophy has had a profound influence on later thinkers, even though, or perhaps especially because, it is open to many interpretations. But political philosophy is not everybody's cup of tea. In his own time, Rousseau was a bestseller, with novels such as The New Eloise and especially Émile, though even the latter is not free of his constant desire to improve society. It illustrates his ideas about the best form of education, which involves educating a child's emotions before their reason. This too had a profound influence on educational theorists.
Certainly in Europe and the West, we tend to think of bread as the staple food in our diet, as many proverbs and sayings such as "bread is the staff of life" attest. Yet for the majority of the world's population, the most important staple food is not wheat, but rice, which is the seed of a different type of grass. The earliest evidence we have of rice being cultivated dates back to 8,000 years ago, when rice grains of that period were discovered in a village in China. By around 6,000 years ago, the cultivation of both long-grain and short-grain rice had become well established in China and had just got going in India. The word rice itself, however, is derived from the Aramaic urutsa and came to us by way of Greek and Arabic. In fact, it was the Arabs who introduced rice to their Spanish territories in the 7th century, but it didn't spread to the rest of Europe until much later when, in the 15th century, Spaniards began to cultivate their own short-grain variety at Pisa in Italy.
Millions of people in North Korea are short of food. Perpetually hungry children and pregnant and nursing mothers are suffering the most. The World Food Program reports South Korea's landmark donation, the biggest in more than a decade, will help ease the nutritional crisis faced by 2 million of this particularly vulnerable group of people. Under an agreement worked out by WFP between both countries, South Korea will donate 50,000 metric tons of rice and $4.5 million in cash for food needs in North Korea.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with India's Foreign Secretary in Washington Monday and told him that the United States stands with India in fighting terrorism. After their meeting, the State Department said the two discussed the importance of bringing to justice those responsible for a suicide attack on an Indian paramilitary convoy claimed by Pakistan-based militants. The State Department said the diplomats spoke of the urgency of Pakistan taking meaningful action against terrorist groups operating on its soil. Last month, a suicide bomber killed 40 Indian paramilitary troops in a convoy in the disputed Kashmir region. A Pakistan-based militant group claimed responsibility for that violence. New Delhi has vowed to punish Islamabad for sheltering the militants, saying the Indian Army chief has been given a free hand to take whatever action is required.
Did any of you notice those strange greenish-colored lights in the sky last night? Anybody? Mark?
I did, sir. They were beautiful. But, what were they?
We call them the northern lights, but they're also called auroras. There are two types of auroras, those in the northern hemisphere and those in the southern hemisphere. In the north, we call them the aurora borealis. In the south, they're the aurora australis. Auroras appear as colorful streams of light in the sky in high northern and southern latitudes. They frequently occur during the months before or after the equinox. The equinox happens in March and September. That's when the planet is tilted so that it's neither pointed away from nor toward the sun. So, why do auroras occur? They're the result of a reaction in the upper atmosphere. Solar winds hit the Earth's magnetic field. This may excite the oxygen and nitrogen atoms in the atmosphere. After some time, the atoms become relaxed. As they relax, the electrons in these atoms give off energy. This energy appears in the form of light. The color of the light depends on whether it comes from oxygen or nitrogen. In addition, the height in the atmosphere helps determine the colors that the light forms. Also, just so you know, oxygen usually emits a green or brownish red light. Nitrogen typically gives off a red or blue light. Most auroras are green in color.
Well, employers are currently experiencing a love-hate relationship with social media. Some are using it to their advantage. They're reaching more customers, increasing sales, and improving their brand image through social networking sites. They're also using them for recruitment. On the other hand, many employers continue to see the bad side of social media and believe that it poses a threat to their business. Negative comments online can damage a brand, and employers also worry that employees might spend too much time online during working hours, stopping them from working effectively and completing all their tasks. But this problem provides employers with an opportunity. Employees who spend a lot of time on social networking sites do it because they're bored. They don't feel challenged and want to fill their time. This suggests that employers should take a more active role in providing development opportunities for their staff and setting new goals. This way, they can benefit from the advantages of social media without experiencing the difficulties.
Listen to a lecture in a botany class. The professor is talking about plant hormones.
The word hormone is derived from a Greek verb that means to excite. Hormones are found in all multicellular organisms and function to coordinate the parts of the organism. A hormone is a chemical signal. It's produced by one part of the body and is then transported to other parts of the body, where it triggers responses in cells and tissues. The concept of chemical messengers in plants first emerged from a series of classic experiments on how plant stems respond to light. Think about this. A houseplant on a windowsill grows toward light. If you rotate the plant, it will soon reorient its growth until its leaves again face the window. The growth of a plant toward light is called phototropism. In a forest or other natural ecosystem where plants may be crowded, phototropism directs growing seedlings toward the sunlight that powers photosynthesis. Some of the earliest experiments on phototropism were conducted in the late 19th century by Charles Darwin and his son, Francis. The Darwins observed that a grass seedling could bend toward light only if the tip of the shoot was present. If the tip was removed, the shoot would not curve toward light. The seedling would also fail to grow toward light if the tip was covered with an opaque cap. The Darwins proposed the hypothesis that some signal was transmitted downward from the tip into the part of the stem that controlled growth. Later experiments by other scientists studying phototropism led to the discovery of chemical messengers that stimulated growth in the stem. These chemical messengers were hormones.
Two. Listen to an art instructor talk about composition.
Composition is the organization of shapes and forms into a whole, an expressive whole. The elements of composition, line, shape, tone, and color, need to be well arranged, need to be ordered, they need to be coherent, just like the words and phrases and sentences in a piece of writing. All paintings have a compositional element. Successful paintings sort of suggest the third dimension, the sense that the design goes beyond the picture frame. A picture's unity, which includes the shapes, tones, and colors, is linked to what the artist has to say. The artist's message is strongest when it's clear. A composition is better if it says one thing strongly than if it tries to say too many things. A crowded composition is sort of fussy and splintered and lacks unity. Even a painting of a single object needs thoughtful composition, so the character of the object is present in every shape.
The pyramids in Cairo are my favorite buildings in the whole world. I knew all about them when I was very young. They have always fascinated me. They really are one of the world's wonders. People still don't know how they were built. I think they are probably the greatest architectural achievement ever. Even the tallest buildings today are easy to build. The pyramids were almost impossible to build, but they did it. Two things fascinate me about the pyramids: their beautiful shape and their mystery. I love looking at photos of the pyramids. When I visited Egypt, their beauty blew me away. And the great thing was, I also felt their mystery. The pyramids are full of hidden secrets, history, and I don't understand road rage. It is a problem that is getting worse all over the world. People are turning into monsters when they get behind the wheel of a car. They think the road belongs to them. They think they don't have to follow speed limits or consider other drivers. I wonder why this is. What is it about cars and driving that turns normal people into maniacs? Some people simply hoot and shake their fists. The funny thing is, they also do the same things to make other drivers angry. Serious road rage happens when someone gets out of their car and gets angry. They can punch the other driver and sometimes even kill them. Why would you want to kill someone because they overtook you?
How frequent are nightmares for toddlers, and what causes them? Those are questions researchers at the University of Montreal hope to answer. They asked parents of about 1,000 children to estimate the occurrence of their child's nightmares from age 2.5 through age 6. The parents were also questioned about their child's disposition. First, it turns out that nightmares aren't so frequent. About a third of the parents reported no nightmares at all. And then there's the second result. Kids who were called difficult as early as 5 months were more likely to suffer from nightmares as toddlers. And the ones who at 1.5 years were more anxious, more likely to cry, and more difficult to calm down were also more likely to have bad dreams. The study authors say this means children may be, well, like little adults. It's already well established that adults tend to express real-life stress and emotional problems as nightmares. The researchers suggest that focusing on the kids' daytime issues and on parenting techniques may help banish nighttime demons.
A direct effect on human health related to climate change is the likely increase in infectious diseases transmitted by insects or through contaminated water. In the March 25th issue of the New England Journal of Medicine, infectious disease researcher Emily Schumann points out that insects are more active at higher temperatures and broaden their range. Altered weather patterns bring drought to some areas, flooding to others, and a higher likelihood of water contamination to both. The World Health Organization predicts a 3 to 5% increase in the population at risk for malaria, with a temperature increase of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, and 2 degrees is our best-case scenario right now. The WHO also sees 10% more diarrheal diseases related to unclean water by 2030 due to climate change. Schumann urges the development of warning systems to spot disease outbreaks early, along with continued research into treatments and vaccines, which, she writes, will go a long way in preventing human suffering that could otherwise occur as a result of climate change.
Formal conclusions could be established through rigorous experiments. Social psychology is concerned with the understanding of human behavior.